This week's Torah portion is called Parshas Mishpatim, and it follows from what we read last week, which was the grand revelation of God at Mount Sinai, where all the Jewish people experienced God unequivocally. There was something that got embedded into our souls, this connection that we have with God, that we recognize God, that we on some level knew God in a way that we continue with in our days. This week's Torah portion is filled with ordinances, with mitzvos, with ways in which we learn how to connect to God. As much as God is in the transcendent, and we have those moments where we perhaps feel connected to something bigger and greater than ourselves, the Har Sinai moments, God is also to be found in the mundane, in our everyday lives, in our everyday relationships with each other. This week's Torah portion, with over 50 of those mitzvahs, teach us how to help each other, how to empathize with each other, how to be compassionate and merciful towards each other. We're taught not to bear a false witness, not to gossip, not to oppress anyone, not to take a bribe, not to misuse our power, and on and on. There are over 50 mitzvahs in this week's Torah portion of how to interact with each other. And in that space, just as much as we have the revelation moments of Mount Sinai, we also have the everyday moments where God is also to be found. This week's Torah portion begins with the letter Vav, which is a connector, which means and these are the ordinances, and this is a way to connect to God. These ways in which we behave are the Torah ways. This is in the middle of the word Torah is Ora, which means light. Embedded in the mitzvahs is light. When we do them, when we connect to each other in loving and passionate ways, because the Torah teaches us to do that, we're unpacking the light that is contained in these actions. So in the mundane, that is also spiritual and also holy and also important to recognize that God is to be found in the interactions between people. This week's Shabbos is also called Shabbat Shekalim, where we read about the half shekel donation that the Jewish people brought in the temple times. They would bring a half a shekel. Whether you were rich, whether you were poor, you brought the same amount of money. It was a half a shekel. It wasn't a whole shekel, it was a half a shekel. Again, teaching us, indicating to us that we are part of something bigger. We're not whole on our own. Each one of us can't do all of the mitzvos, but as a Jewish people, we can. We bring a half a shekel to teach us, to help us understand that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves. We are part of something which is beautiful, which is holy. We have that capacity. We have to put the effort in. We have to have the recognition that the way in which we interact with each other is also holy, is also ways to connect ourselves with God, and also ways to bring out the divine transcendent light into the world.